Hey friends, this is Pastor Keith for Trinity Chapel, welcoming you to another edition of Walking Through Westminster. Thank you for joining with me today. Hope you all are having a great week. Today we come to question 51 in the Westminster Shorter Catechism, and that question asks, what is forbidden in the second commandment? And it says, the second commandment forbids the worshiping of God by images or any other way not appointed in His Word. So again, we continue looking at the second commandment, all related to how we are to worship God rightly. So again, the first commandment dealing with who are we to worship, God alone, no one else. The second commandment dealing primarily with how are we to worship God. And we saw last week what the second commandment requires of us, and this week we look at what the second commandment forbids us from doing. And the first thing that the Catechism points out is we are forbidden from worshiping God by images. Now, what that means is simply trying to make any visual representation of God that we would use in worship, statues, pictures, icons, whatever it might be. And it references here Deuteronomy 4, if you're looking at the Catechism with the references. And Deuteronomy 4 says, this is God Himself speaking, commanding His people not to worship Him with images. And He says, take therefore good heed unto yourselves, for you did not see any manner or similitude on the day that the Lord spoke unto you in Horeb, lest you corrupt yourselves and make yourselves a graven image. So we see throughout church history that this is a big temptation for us, even as Christians. We are really tempted to worship God according to our own imaginations and not the way that He actually reveals Himself in His Word. And so images in particular will continue to crop up time and again, and we see that this is still an issue today. We have a number of brothers and sisters in Christ who wrestle with this issue, and I would say even have probably gone astray according to this issue, such as the Papal Church or the so-called Orthodox churches of the East, whoever it might be. But God expressly forbids us in the second commandment from worshiping Him with images. There's two parts to the commandment, if you'll remember from last week. We're not to make graven images of God, and we're not to worship Him with graven images. Both of those are included as being forbidden under the second commandment. We're not to make images of God, and we're not to worship God by using images. But then that second part just gets at more of the general application of what's forbidden for us in the second commandment, and that was again what said, we are forbidden to worship God any other way not appointed in His Word. Similar to what we talked about last week with the regulative principle, what we are to do when it comes to worshiping God is worship Him the way He has told us to worship Him, and not to try and invent something new or create something better as if we knew better than God would about how best to worship Him. God has told us in His Word how we should approach Him, how we should come before Him, and we are to do those things and nothing more, nothing less. So the second commandment forbids us from not just worshiping God with graven images, but in a general sense, worshiping Him any way that we would imagine as being better than how He's already told us to do so. So we'll look next week at kind of the reasons that are annexed to the second commandment with questions 52, and then we'll get into the third commandment the following week. But until then, may the Lord richly bless each one of you. Thank you for joining with me today.